This video is going to be about how to set up your podcast itself, and this is specifically an audio podcast that I have set up, and it's one that I did for an organization that I was part of a couple years ago. Basically, I like to use WordPress for my podcast setup and a specific plugin. The reason I like to use WordPress is because it has all of your RSS feeds built in, and you can have subscribe links to the RSS feed, podcast feed, iTunes subscription. If they click on that, it automatically subscribes them in iTunes. For your Microsoft users that might have a Zune player, you can add it to your Zune list. And basically what it does, you create a post just like you do a regular WordPress post and title it whatever you want, put the description in, and all this stuff is automatically pulled over into your iTunes feed. You also have a player that you can modify the look and feel of this player if you want. You can have the player listed at the top of your post, at the bottom of your post, or there's a code that you could put it into the middle of the description if you wanted, and people can play the podcast directly from the website, or of course download it or add it to iTunes and so forth. Like I say, whatever you put in this description is going to be what's on iTunes itself. You could copy this link straight over into your Facebook fan page, and it's going to pull the title in and the photo and so forth, and then they can link back here to get to the audio. I want to show you a little bit about what the back end of this looks like. The nice thing is that your stats are pulled directly into the dashboard of your WordPress login, so when you go to your admin side of the site, you can immediately see the stats for the current month and your total stats. And this is what this plugin actually looks like. There are specific tabs here, basic settings, and I will explain how to do these in a future episode. Default URL, if you're going to host your audio files or video files on Amazon, you can put the path to all your files in here, and then all you need to do on your specific posts are put the file name itself in, and it automatically appends this path to it. It just saves you some time later on. I have mine auto-detect file size and auto-detect the duration, and then, of course, over in the post, it lists that beside your audio player. Services and stats, this is set up, and, of course, Blueberry has paid packages for hosting, but I use the free package on almost all my podcasts. And this is where it's pulling the stats in from your feed, and Blueberry keeps track of those stats. And I will show you how to list your site over on Blueberry. The cool thing about that is I've had podcasts that I started just a brand new site with no traffic, no Google listing at all, and within at least a day and sometimes just hours of putting my link over on Blueberry, Google has already pulled that in just because that site is so big and has so many podcasts listed there already. This is a media sublink. But let me show you some other media parents. This is where you set up your media player to enable or disable it, set up where it's going to be, or this is the short code that you use to put it anywhere in the description. Feeds, here's the specific iTunes listing. And this, once your podcast is approved on iTunes, this link will be in that email, and you just basically put that link in here, and it's the iTunes, and people, when they click on that, they're automatically going to be subscribed to your podcast. This is where you put your podcast title. I have set up just to use the blog or the WordPress site title on this one. You can set it up with multiple podcasts on a single WordPress site. You would set up a separate category for each of your podcast links. This is your iTunes category, subcategories, and whether it is explicit or not. In other words, do you have adult language, you would list that here, because iTunes does want to let people know if there is going to be, if it's family friendly or if it's going to have adult content. So you want to make sure you get that correct. You'll get in trouble if you have adult content and have it listed as clean. Artwork is where you actually put your podcast logo. That's the logo that will show up on iTunes, and that's a 14 by 1400 pixel graphic, a square graphic. If you change that, you want to click this link, and it will notify iTunes, hey, there's a new logo here, and you need to come get that. So what this basically does is create the RSS feed for iTunes. Once you have things set up, you can take a look at your RSS feed, and you can see here it has the title in. You can see the specific iTunes tags that this creates: iTunes summary, iTunes author, explicit, yes or no, and email. This is the email that it's going to send confirmation back that, hey, we've received your submission, and in a day or two you'll receive the next one that says we've approved your site and it's now live on iTunes, and anyone in the entire universe can subscribe to it. You can also validate your feed directly from here, test it to make sure that it's going to work and going to be correct. And this is an error that you don't want to, it doesn't mean anything, so you don't need to worry about it. Other cool thing I found out is that you can test your feed directly inside of iTunes, but I'll show you that in another video. I wanted to quickly show you how what the entries look like on your WordPress site, and it's basically just you are adding a post in the specific directory, and I chose AudioCast for this directory in case we would ever do a video cast, which we will probably not. But you just put the title in, and of course iTunes pulls that in as the title of this particular episode. Description, that will be over on iTunes also. And then as you look down the page, if this was a new post, all this would show the first time. And this is that media URL. The first part of that was over on the site. So all I actually did was put in the particular file name of this episode, clicked verify, and it said, yes, we can see this audio file. We know that it's correctly formatted. It's a correct MP3 file. And remember, back in the settings I had it auto detect. It automatically pulls in the size of the file and the specific duration in hours, minutes, and seconds. And once you have that information in and save the post, it uses this information to pull into that audio player. And of course, if you ever change that, you could change that in that particular post. So when we view this post, it is actually this information with the audio player that plays that specific audio file that we entered. So it's very simple. It makes it one of the biggest difficulties of podcasting is the consistency factor. And it just makes it super simple to get your next episode online. It really isn't a much simpler way. I don't like using FeedBurner. I don't like using any other feeds. I like to control my own feed. The feed is right here on your site, your URL, registered with iTunes, and it is ready to go. So that's an overview of how I set up my podcasts. And we'll get into specifics in the next video.